This week, we're talking about prayer. Such an important topic. And Elijah, of all of the people of the Old Testament, he is the most famous prayer of the Old Testament. And it's interesting, in the New Testament, you would think the disciples would know how to pray. And maybe you think you should know how to pray. Do you realize that prayer is the only thing the disciples ever asked Jesus to teach them? So if you feel uncomfortable praying, maybe you've never prayed in public or you're kind of embarrassed, like, I don't know how to pray, this is going to be a great week for you because we're going to give you some tools and some conversation around prayer that will build your confidence on how to talk to God. More on that in a minute, but let me just give you some fun facts, some statistics about prayer. For many Americans, every day is a day of prayer. In fact, more than half, 55% of Americans say they pray every day. Most are private prayers. That's from the 2014 Pew Research Center survey. Now, 21% say they pray weekly or monthly, and 23% say they seldom or never pray. So a quarter of people just say they don't pray. Even among those who are religiously unaffiliated, they don't go to church, the 20% say they pray daily. This probably won't surprise most of you, but women, 64%, are more likely than men, 46%, to say they pray every day. And Americans ages 65 and older, this won't surprise you, are far more likely than adults under 30 to say they pray daily. That's 65% versus 41%. Among the 7 out of 10 American adults who consider themselves to be Christians, 3 out of 4, 76%, believe that God hears prayers. This is unbelievable to me. Like, you say you're a Christian, but only 3/4 of those who say they're Christians believe God actually hears their prayers. That blows my mind. However, there's a range of ideas about how people believe that God responds to prayers. So, 39% believe that He hears all our prayers and answers each one. Although sometimes the answer is no. 20% argue that He hears all prayers, but carries out His will regardless of those prayers. So your prayer doesn't actually change anything. 11% says God hears all the prayers, but only answers prayers from people who are truly committed to Him. Good luck with that. Just 6% listen, this is self-identified Christians. Only 6% contend that God only answers a prayer if many people pray it, or it's been prayed consistently for a long time. So you got to add up the prayers, either laterally or like horizontally, either depth or breadth of prayers. A surprisingly large share of people who pray, 14% of people who pray, admitted they don't know if God responds to prayers at all. There was one large population study done by a Harvard professor named Tyler Vanderweel. He found, this is so important, young adults who prayed daily tended to have fewer depressive symptoms and higher levels of life satisfaction, self-esteem, and positive effect in comparison to those who never prayed. In other words, even if your prayers don't change the mind of God, but they do, they change your heart and even your physiology. Prayer is just good for you. And when I've coached people how to pray, there's several things that I think they're so helpful and so simple. First, don't try to pray like someone else. You don't need to use King James language. You don't need to have like flowery speech. Just talk to God like you would talk to someone who is across the table from you. The second thing I think is really helpful, not only to pray naturally, but I start my prayers with the word Father or Holy Father. I'm modeling that off of how Jesus taught us to pray in the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven. Here's why that's so important. When you think of God as this God of the universe, He's hard to relate to. And even if you've had a poor father or no father, you have an impulse in you that craves a dad. And when you talk to God like He's your father, it makes such a big difference. And this is an advantage that you have that even Elijah didn't have. No one, up until Jesus, taught others to pray to God as Father. In fact, no one prayed to God as Father. But did you know that Jesus never prayed to God except by calling and starting with the word Father. No one, up to the time of Jesus, ever prayed to God as Father. And Jesus taught us to pray to God as Father. So I would encourage you, just begin your prayer, not just with the word, but with this idea that you have a Father in heaven. He cares about you. He wants the best for you. He will discipline you. He will challenge you. But he's also going to coach, guide, love, and protect you. Begin with that word, and that will change your prayers. So talk naturally, like you don't have to impress anybody. Talk to God personally so that God is actually someone you can relate to. A third thing that I would say that will help your prayer life is that you can talk to God in your own communication patterns. Here's what I mean by that. Many of you know that statistically women use far more words than men. That's true in my marriage. Like, I'm done with my words by, say, noon. My wife, however, she has many more words in a day to come out. So I try to be a good listener, but I'm not always a good conversationalist. I don't have a ton to say, and what I say crisply. That's the way I talk to people. My telephone conversations are short. So for me to try to have extended hour-long prayer times, that's going to be a stretch for me. I'm also pretty logical in my speech patterns, so my prayers tend to be more logical. That's okay. Some of you, you're more musical. Sing your prayers to God. We have a whole book in the Bible that is singing prayers to God. Sometimes prayers are very emotional, filled with anger or with tears or sadness. That's okay. You don't need to hide your person or your emotions from God. Be who you are. Those are just three things that helped me when I needed to learn to pray and have helped me teach others to pray as well. Prayer, it is so important, not just for changing the mind of God, but changing your heart, your physiology, and your future. So that's something worth talking about.